Welcome once again to the Deep Dive. Today, we're strapping in for a really high-stakes, almost world-ending exploration.
It really is.
We're plunging into a thick stack of sources that detail the climax of this huge mythological conflict, and it all boils down to, what, 1 week? One teenager?
And one truly impossible choice.
Yeah.
Our focus is squarely on the confrontation between the demigods of Camp Half-Blood and the resurrected Titan Lord, Kronos.
And we're pulling this from the pages of Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian.
Right. And look, this isn't going to be just a plot summary. This is more of an intense extraction mission.
Okay.
We need to analyze the core strategic pivots, the immense emotional costs, and the complex interlocking layers of prophecy that really drove this whole event.
So not just what happened, but why it had to happen the way it did.
Exactly. We're looking closely at the preparation for this world-altering 16th birthday, the agonizing choice forced on the protagonist, Percy Jackson, son of Poseidon, and how this whole complex web of loyalty, political maneuvering, and just desperate betrayal, how that all determined the fate of Olympus.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What makes this deep dive so compelling is, I think, the sheer compression of the timeline. The sources cover this intense final 7 days leading up to the war's conclusion.
Just 7 days. It's an insane amount of action.
And in that week, you have an explosive infiltration mission that immediately confirms their worst fears.
Right off the bat.
Then a desperate, really politically charged journey deep into the underworld, the massive siege of Manhattan itself.
And then the shocking aftermath. I mean, the reward he gets, the major institutional decision he forces.
And of course, the introduction of an entirely new, very ominous prophecy right at the end.
And what defines this entire story, really, is that ticking clock. The demigods were existing in this extreme pressure cooker. Every single strategic move, every emotional decision was just amplified by this rapidly escalating countdown to Percy's 16th birthday.
So let's start with that ticking clock, because it really does define the urgency, doesn't it?
It's everything.
The entire conflict hinges on the great prophecy's deadline. Percy's 16th birthday is just 7 days away.
And the prophecy is crystal clear. Upon reaching that age, he has to make a single choice.
A choice that will either save or completely destroy the world. I mean, can you imagine that pressure?
No. It's the ultimate high school no-pressure scenario, but these sources do this brilliant thing where they contrast this, global pressure with some truly personal human stakes.
It's a fantastic juxtaposition. You've got this kid, he's facing cosmic annihilation, and what does he want?
A vacation.
A vacation. He's grappling with just needing a break after the hardest summer of his life. He admits the idea of going to St. Thomas, where Rachel Dare's family is headed, was really tempting.
And you see that subtle, painful tension with Rachel. He notes she appears like 1,000,000 golden drachmas when she's all dressed up.
But at the same time, she's facing this intense parental pressure to go to the Clarion Ladies Academy, this really strict, structured place.
And their whole interaction is it's frustratingly normal, but it's also impossible under the circumstances.
Right. She's trying to talk to him about something serious, something she's worried about. But with the end of the world looming, how can you even have that conversation? It feels frivolous.
Even as their relationship is clearly reaching this critical point.
And that emotional tension just immediately slams into the military reality of the first mission, which is the infiltration of Kronos' mobile headquarters.
That headquarters being the cruise ship, the Princess Andromeda. The objective is just brutally simple.
Percy and Charles Beckendorf, who's the seasoned explosives expert son of Hephaestus.
Right. They have to board the ship, which is steaming toward New York Harbor, and destroy it.
Before the full invasion can begin. This isn't a search and destroy mission.
No, it's a suicide run. Plain and simple.
They're transported by the Pegasus, Blackjack. And the sources remind us he has this personal vendetta against the ship.
He was enslaved there 3 years earlier.
Exactly. So that detail grounds the emotional stakes, even for the non-human characters. Beckendorf is described specifically bronze breastplate, war helm, a bag full of explosives.
This is a fully sanctioned, planned assault. This isn't some rogue mission.
And from a distance, the ship looks like a standard party cruise. But then you get up close and you see the figurehead.
The maiden in chains with a look of horror. It just reveals the true dark nature of Kronos' base of operations.
What's really crucial here is the tactical intelligence they have, which It kind of sets up the eventual realization that there's a spy.
Oh, absolutely. The sources give us these fantastic specific logistical details. The demigods knew they were targeting the engine room, and they had the exact coordinate.
Right. 40.19 degrees north, 71.9 degrees west, moving at 18 knots. They knew it was set to arrive by dawn.
That level of precise coordinate and velocity tracking, that suggests intelligence gathered from the inside. Or, I suppose, a very sophisticated external observation team, but...
But the inside source seems more likely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That precise data point is fascinating. It shows that whoever was relaying information about Kronos' movements wasn't just observing.
No, they were deeply involved. They had access to Camp Half-Blood's most critical strategic information.
Which is terrifying.
Precisely. So they have the intel, but the infiltration itself is a complete nightmare. The ship is a monstrous headquarters infested with just a truly diverse array of evil creatures.
So you've got your Jersini, snake women, hellhounds, giants.
And the Telkines, the humanoid seal demons. Beckendorf's target is the engine room, a critical, massive hub of activity.
Here's where it gets really interesting and surprisingly funny in the sources.
It does.
They have to cut a metal hatch using chain cutters. They run into a single Telkine, described specifically as having, slick black seal fur, stubby feet, a Doberman head.
But, and this is the detail, almost human hands. And what is this demonic servant of the Titan Lord doing just moments before a catastrophic explosion?
He's hunched over a console.
Possibly messaging his friends on uglyface.com.
Uglyface.com. That one small detail is just a stroke of genius. Is this tactical negligence on Kronos' part, or is the source implying that even demonic seal demons working for a Titan Lord are still just bored teenagers in a war zone?
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
And that contrast is exactly why the detail is included. The humor, it actually heightens the tension.
It does.
It reminds you that despite the high-tech, high-magic setting, these creatures are just serving a master they may or may not care about. It's this brief, absurd moment of familiarity right before the deadliest moment of the mission.
And the objective is deadly serious. They're rigging the massive yellow turbines with Greek fire.
A hazardous magical liquid that can burn even underwater.
And they're securing it with duct tape, which shows both desperation and ingenuity.
It does. And it has to be Greek fire, specifically. Regular explosives wouldn't be enough to destroy a vessel this size, and more importantly, they wouldn't be enough to scatter the consciousness of a Titan Lord's host body.
So Greek fire is just chaos in a can.
It's chaos in liquid form. It guarantees total magical annihilation of the physical vessel. But it's also incredibly unstable. The very act of rigging those charges requires Beckendorf's specialized skill and a tremendous tolerance for risk.
And then, of course, they're discovered. You hear the pounding feet on the steps, which forces Percy to execute the distraction plan up on Deck 6.
And this is the moment the price of the war really starts to be calculated.
Percy creates chaos. He slices off the claw of a demonic crustacean, and he notes it was larger than his Reeboks.
I love that detail.
Me too. Before stabbing Riptide into a chink in its armor, causing the shell to turn bright red before it dissolves.
But the distraction comes at Beckendorf's expense. Kronos, already in Luke Castellan's body, reveals he knew the plan all along.
Which confirms, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that there is a spy.
Absolutely. Beckendorf is dragged out by two giants, along with Ethan Nakamura, the son of Nemesis.
Who had already betrayed Percy once before and helped bring Kronos back.
And this scene is just agonizing. Beckendorf is beaten, his eye is swollen, his armor is gone. But the sources, they really emphasize that his sacrifice was deliberate and highly tactical.
He deliberately misled his captors. He made them believe he hadn't reached the engine room yet, which preserved the armed Greek fire charges.
He bought the mission. He communicated this vital, silent message to Percy, a circle made with his fingers and thumbs.
Zero delay.
Zero delay on the detonator watch. It's an act of ultimate heroism and cold, hard strategic calculation, all wrapped up in a death sentence.
And Percy knew he couldn't get far enough away if he detonated it immediately. But he had no choice once Beckendorf signaled the plan was active.
None at all.
He buys just enough time by throwing Riptide like a javelin to startle Kronos before he just leaps 100 feet off the side of the ship, willing the currents to carry him away.
And even from hundreds of yards away in the water, the resulting explosion shook the world. A massive fireball of green flame, confirming the catastrophic use of the Greek fire.
Poseidon later confirms that Beckendorf's death was a success. The explosion scattered Kronos' initial invasion force. It bought them valuable time.
But as you'd expect for a Titan lord, Kronos himself survived the blast. He just lost his physical vessel temporarily.
So this victory, while it was crucial, it confirmed two very hard truths.
One, the enemy was truly vulnerable only when weakened. And two, they had a traitor in their ranks.
A brutal victory won at the ultimate cost. So Percy wakes up from the shock of the explosion from his wounds, and he finds himself immersed in a completely different war.
The war under the sea. A war that reflects the sheer political scope of Kronos' attack.
Right, he's in Poseidon's underwater palace, which the sources describe as being comparable in size to the city on Mount Olympus. It's paneled with abalone shell, paths lined with glowing pearls.
But the immediate context isn't beauty, it's massive destruction. He's being cared for by his Cyclops half-brother Tyson on a bed made of kelp.
What's truly fascinating here is the physical state of the sea god himself. Poseidon is visibly weakened. The sources say he looks 10 years older.
Because he reflects the grim state of his domain, his kingdom is literally falling apart.
The palace is being actively destroyed by Greek fire, which can even burn underwater, and it's under siege by the sea titan Oceanus.
You've got these warriors, blue-skinned mermen with shark teeth, just tending to the wounded. It's a vision of a kingdom under siege, a far cry from the glorious image of Olympus.
And this is a crucial political indicator. Kronos didn't just target the Olympian strongholds.
No, he targeted the very foundation of their power. By tying up Poseidon with Oceanus, a major sea titan, Kronos made sure that the god of the sea could not intervene on land.
He neutralized arguably the most powerful direct threat to Manhattan's coastal defenses.
Exactly. And Poseidon, even with his own realm in dire straits, insists Percy has to leave immediately. He says Percy's final fight is in the world above, and crucially, that Percy has to hear the entire prophecy.
He was basically saying, my war is localized, but yours is global. You have to prioritize the prophecy.
And he issues that key warning again. Kronos knew your plans, confirming the spy is real and operating from within Camp Half-Blood.
Then, before Percy leaves, Poseidon reminds him about his gift from the previous summer, a sand dollar, and tells him he'll know when to spend it.
Which sets up this delayed tactical utility that becomes absolutely critical later on.
So Percy returns to Camp Half-Blood, which is revealed to be deeply fractured, paranoid, and just suffering from a complete institutional failure.
Yeah, it's a mess. The first order of business is retrieving the full great prophecy from the Oracle's attic.
And that attic is always a fascinating inventory of forgotten hero lore, isn't it?
It is. We get the description of dented shields, pickled heads, and my favorite, the famous plaque. Stolen from Chrysler's Honda Civic by Gus, son of Hermes, 1988.
It's just a perfect mix of the epic and the completely mundane.
It is. But once they have the parchment, the reality of the prophecy hits home for Percy, who, you have to remember, is dyslexic.
Right. He struggles to read the critical lines. A half-blood of the eldest gods shall reach 16 against all odds and see the world in endless sleep.
And the weight of that destiny is immediately compounded by the civil war that's brewing right inside the camp.
The sources show a community just tearing itself apart over petty slights, even with the fate of the world hanging in the balance.
The Ares and Apollo cabins are in open warfare, literally, over a captured flying chariot they seized in a raid in Philadelphia.
The Apollo kids are using fire bombs, but then the Ares cabin calls down this curse that causes the Apollo arrows to turn to rubber.
And I love this detail. The curse also makes the Ares campers yell in poetry.
They start using rhyming curses because Apollo is the god of poetry. It's a perfect mix of magical absurdity and just terrible internal strife.
But the consequence is serious. Clarisse, the daughter of Ares, refuses to lift a finger to help because of this perceived diss to her cabin.
This internal paralysis fighting over status and loot while Kronos is preparing to strike it underscores the exact flaw in the demigod system.
Their inability to unify under a common threat. This failure is what makes Nico D'Angelo's drastic proposal start to sound like the only viable option.
Nico, the son of Hades, he returns, and he's pushing his extreme plan to defeat the seemingly invulnerable Titan.
Which is for Percy to gain the Curse of Achilles by bathing in the river Styx. They'd seen Kronos' invulnerability firsthand on the Princess Andromeda. Riptide just glanced harmlessly off him.
The need for a fighting edge is paramount.
The path to the Styx, though, requires a crucial detour to Luke Kesselin's childhood home in Westport, Connecticut. This is essential for understanding Luke's motivation.
It's a massive two-story white colonial property that contrasts so sharply with the horror inside. This isn't just a house, it's a monument to a prolonged psychological breakdown.
Absolutely. The sources paint this deeply disturbing picture. A kitchen counter stacked with hundreds of Tupperware containers of fuzzy, moldy PB&J sandwiches.
Cookie sheets piled high with burned cookies and a beanbag Medusa. That imagery speaks volumes.
It's not just grief, it's static psychological decay. A monument to a mother who tried to maintain a sense of normal routine long after her reality had completely shattered.
May Castellan, Luke's mother, is mentally fractured. We learn from Hestia later that May was born with a gift to see through the mist, but she went too far. She tried to become the Oracle before Luke was born.
An attempt that was cursed by Hades, who was trying to prevent a prophecy child. A critical, long-standing piece of lore showing Hades' bitterness and how his choices impacted the fate of Olympus decades down the line.
And May Castellan confirms Luke did visit her. He was scarred and in pain, and he was seeking her blessing before going to a river, which confirms he took the Styx dip before his body became Kronos' vessel.
And then she temporarily becomes possessed, her eyes glowing green, warning, must protect him. Hermes, help. Not my child, not his fate, no.
Which suggests a residual protective instinct, fighting against Luke's monstrous fate. A momentary glimpse of the divine struggle taking place inside Luke's body.
After this deeply disturbing visit, they encounter Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, who appears as an 8-year-old girl by a campfire. And she provides some essential ethical context.
She explains May was driven to madness because she went too far in using her sight.
But her real purpose is to remind Percy that the hardest power to master is the power of yielding.
You know, I found Hestia's advice here a little tone-deaf on the surface. If the fate of the world rests on you making a choice, yielding your power sounds like capitulation. It sounds like running away from the problem.
I see that, but I have to disagree strongly with that interpretation of the sources. Hestia's yielding wasn't weakness, it was strategic, long-term peacekeeping.
How so?
She yielded her own throne to Dionysus to prevent an immediate civil war over the balance of power. She accepted a less glorious role for the sake of stability. She was warning Percy against the seductive logic of desperate instant power.
Which is exactly what Luke embraced.
Exactly. He took the Styx dip solely for invulnerability. She warns Percy not to follow Luke's path.
That wisdom is ignored, though, because of the immediate need for that invulnerability. Nico tricks Percy into entering the underworld.
Right, through the door of Orpheus in Central Park. To open it, they need music, which is supplied by a recently woken Grover.
And we learn that Grover had been put to sleep for 2 months by a mysterious figure who was scouting a battlefield, which confirms Morpheus, the god of sleep, had been active for some time preparing the city for Kronos.
And Nico's motivation is purely personal. He'd agreed to deliver Percy to Hades' palace in exchange for information about his mother, Maria D'Angelo, who was killed by Zeus because of the Great Prophecy.
So Hades uses this to capture Percy, intending for him to just wait out the war for 50 or 60 years. Hades doesn't want to help Olympus, but he also doesn't want to risk Percy's death and the potential power shift that would cause.
The escape is immediate, though, thanks to Nico's guilty conscience and his shadow travel powers, which leave him completely drained. And then the Styx dip follows.
We need to analyze the mechanics of this, because it's not just a simple dunk in the water.
Not at all. The Styx is the river of unbreakable oaths and dissolved souls. The sources describe the terrifying process. It's like boiling acid, the feeling of his soul dissolving. The panic of drowning for the son of Poseidon.
And the only way he survives this agonizing process is by focusing every fiber of his being on a single mortal anchor.
One point of contact with his past life that cannot be dissolved.
And that anchor, in a flash of painful, desperate clarity, is Annabeth. She seems to pull him out in a vision, and that's what secures the Curse of Achilles for him.
When he emerges, his skin is red and he feels like he's been broiled over a slow flame, but then the color returns to normal. His vulnerable spot, his mortal point of contact, is established in the small of his back.
The significance of this anchor just cannot be overstated, can it?
No, Luke's anchor was the memory of his family, which ultimately provided the path for his redemption, but it was a fragile anchor tethered to the trauma of his childhood.
But Percy's anchor is Annabeth. It's a conscious, immediate, and deep human connection.
And that choice of anchor is the philosophical underpinning of the sources. The greatest defense against soul-dissolving power isn't a weapon or a divine blessing, but human love and loyalty. He is now virtually invulnerable to physical harm, but spiritually anchored and focused on Annabeth.
The preparation is complete. The war is upon them. So with Percy now invulnerable and back in the mortal world, We immediately confront the full scale of Kronos' invasion strategy.
And this wasn't a frontal assault expecting the gods to be home. This was a masterful feint that played directly into the gods' greatest fears.
It was an expertly coordinated two-pronged attack designed to neutralize Olympus before the main fighting force even arrived.
Right. The massive monster Typhon, described as a mountain of darkness, is used as the ultimate distraction.
Typhon is the father of all monsters. He's the one creature the Olympians fear above all others, having almost defeated them in ancient times.
And he's moving east, crushing buildings in St. Louis and approaching New York. So the gods, recognizing Typhon as the existential threat, are forced to commit nearly all their resources to the Midwest.
Dionysus is incapacitated in the Appalachians. Hephaestus creates a new lake in West Virginia after being thrown from the battle. The sources make it clear. Olympus is left virtually defenseless.
They're focusing solely on the mythical primal threat while ignoring the contemporary tactical one right at their doorstep.
And while the gods are busy battling this colossal distraction, Kronos, with the help of Morpheus and Hecate, casts this devastating massive spell over Manhattan.
This magical containment is the strategic genius of the invasion. Mortals inside are totally asleep, creating this eerie, silent cityscape. Percy notes it feels like his best friend had suddenly dropped dead.
And crucially, the sources specify that outside a 50-mile radius, time is running really, really slow.
Like flies in amber.
Exactly. So this isn't just a sleep spell, it's isolation. Any outside reinforcements, any mortal awareness of the crisis, any intervention from the broader world is effectively paralyzed.
Kronos is creating a magical bubble for his private siege, guaranteeing the demigods will fight alone.
And the demigod defense relies entirely on Plan 23. The core fighting force is just laughably small.
We're talking 40 kids against an army.
Only 40 demigods, plus Thalia and the Hunters of Artemis, who have doubled in number since last year, are holding the line.
They are outnumbered 20-1, and their mission is to hold the entrances to Manhattan against Kronos' rapidly advancing army of hundreds.
This is the critical moment where Percy spends the sand dollar gifted by Poseidon. He remembers Athena's cryptic advice to remember the rivers.
And he uses his father's gift to bribe the two river gods, East and Hudson.
The river gods are an incredible detail, aren't they? They appear as these grungy figures of silt and garbage.
The Hudson River god, in particular, is described in glorious, grimy detail. He's covered in seaweed, his skin is slick with oil, and he's wearing chainmail made of bottle caps and old plastic skits-pack holders.
They are the total antithesis of the glorious gods of Olympus. They are the physical manifestation of mortal negligence toward nature.
And Percy breaks the sand dollar in half, causing this ripple of clean, fresh water to spread, dissolving the pollution in the bay. This is a massive payment, a reversal of years of damage.
In return, they agree to use their natural power to sink Kronos' invading speedboats and monsters in the East and Hudson rivers.
It's the first successful non-traditional defense, leveraging the forgotten powers of the earth.
With the river defense secured, they assign the crucial bridges and tunnels. Kitty Gardner and the Demeter cabin are sent to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel.
Instructed to grow thorn bushes and poison ivy to block the path.
The Hermes cabin, the Stoll brothers, they take the Holland Tunnel. Thalia and the Hunters take the Lincoln Tunnel, where a World War II-era Sherman tank and the 100 monsters were seen marching.
The stakes are immense, and the resources are pathetic.
And the first major clash happens at the Williamsburg Bridge, where Percy, Annabeth, and the Apollo cabin face a massive army led by the Minotaur.
Now grown to be at least 10 feet tall.
The sheer power of the enemy is immediate. The Minotaur just throws a white limousine at them.
This is where Percy's new invulnerability is immediately put to the test. He's forced to use Riptide and his new strength to stab the bridge, unleashing salt water that creates a fissure.
He uses his water powers to create a devastating 50-foot chasm, breaking the suspension bridge and forcing Kronos and his cavalry to retreat until the evening.
This demonstration of power is necessary, but it's a temporary fix. Kronos is still out there, and the demigods are already exhausted.
And this is where the shadow of the spy is finally realized with fatal clarity. While they're consolidating their defenses, the army is attacked by a massive targeted monster.
A 200-foot-long draken, described as being as thick as a school bus. Percy immediately realizes the strategic nature of this attack, confirming Kronos' insider knowledge.
Kronos intentionally chose this specific monster because he knew the Ares cabin, the only group traditionally destined to kill it and neutralize its poison, was absent because of Clariss's boycott.
This wasn't a random attack. It was targeted tactical exploitation of the demigod's internal weakness. Proof that the spy was privy not just to military plans, but to the specific internal politics of the camp.
And it is at this critical juncture that the betrayal turns into redemption. Selena Beauregard, daughter of Aphrodite and friend of the deceased Beckendorf.
She rides into battle wearing Clarissa's distinctive red armor, attempting to slay the Draken. It's a truly heartbreaking attempt at heroism.
But her deception fails. She is critically poisoned by the serpent's spit, and as she's dragged back, her blue eyes, Clarisse has brown eyes, betray her identity.
And as she lies dying, Selena confesses that she was the spy, coerced by Kronos after Charlie Beckendorf's death. She hands over a silver bracelet with the scythe charm, the mark of Kronos, confirming her intelligence gathering.
The emotional weight of this moment is immense. She confesses her guilt for Charlie's death and for endangering the camp, and she dies a true hero in the process. She chose redemption over the secrecy that haunted her.
She paid the ultimate price to clear her conscience and confirm the source of Kronos' perfect intel.
And this immediately snaps Clarisse out of her petulant boycott. The betrayal of her friend and the recognition of her own selfish inaction just ignites this genuine rage.
Clarisse single-handedly destroys the Draken with a celestial bronze javelin and then rallies the previously panicking centaurs into a devastating charge.
The sources make a point of noting the noise. The dragon carcass is so large that its body makes a scraping noise like 1,000 knives as Clarisse drives her chariot into the enemy lines, daring Kronos to appear.
The defense finally starts gaining serious momentum with the arrival of divine, or at least semi-divine, help.
Chiron and the centaurs, the party ponies, arrive. Their speed is explained by their ability to bend distance while riding.
They break through the magical defenses where mortals cannot, reinforcing the demigods just as the enemy is on the verge of overwhelming them.
And critically, Nico D'Angelo, having convinced his father, Hades, that Kronos is the greater threat.
Because Kronos would destroy the underworld as well.
He brings Hades, Persephone, and Demeter to the battlefield. This is a massive political shift.
Hades, wearing black armor and his terrifying helm of darkness, raises an army of the dead, creating a fissure that separates the armies of Olympus and Kronos. The war is no longer just on the shoulders of the demigods.
And the sources include one of the most surprising, grounded details of the whole war, right here in the chaos of battle.
Percy's mother.
Percy's mother, Sally Jackson, and Paul Blofus, his stepfather, enter the fray. Sally is armed with a pump-action shotgun she learned to fire about 2 seconds ago.
And Paul is swinging a sword. This is the ultimate moment of mortals stepping up to defend the mythological world.
They join Nico and the dead army to fight the remaining monsters, ensuring Percy can proceed with Annabeth and Grover to the top of Olympus.
It just emphasizes the theme that heroism isn't limited to demigods, and that human loyalty is sometimes stronger than divine power.
So the climactic confrontation is now set in the ruins of Mount Olympus. The few remaining defenders, Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and Nico, are racing up the mountain.
Which is actively crumbling from Kronos' power and the chaos. Hera's massive statue, which reflects her vengeful and disruptive nature throughout the series.
It topples and pins Thalia, forcing them to leave her behind and continue the ascent.
The scene in the throne room is devastating. Kronos is just lounging casually on his golden throne. He easily deflects the initial attacks, including Percy's powerful water blasts.
The Titan Lord is powerful, but he claims he's limited by the mortal form he inhabits. He needs to rest and conserve energy.
But Annabeth refuses to engage physically. She attempts to appeal to the consciousness buried within, Luke Castellan. She remembers his promise of a new family.
It's a profoundly risky, emotional tactic in a moment of pure violence.
And this appeal works because of the realization Percy had earlier, during his Styx dip. The vision Percy received when he took the dip revealed that Luke's mortal anchor,
The single point of vulnerability that kept his soul from dissolving,
was also Annabeth and his old family. Annabeth's desperate appeal, reminding him of his past, shocks Luke's consciousness. It allows him to briefly overcome Kronos' complete influence.
This is the ultimate act of self-redemption. Luke, now free of the Titan's control, demands Annabeth's knife.
He stabs himself in his Achilles spot, which is revealed to be under his arm, the mortal vulnerability he shared with Percy.
This final, fatal wound shatters Kronos' host body into dust, scattering the consciousness of the Titan Lord and ending the immediate threat.
Luke's redemption through self-sacrifice is arguably the central moral pivot of the entire narrative. He ultimately makes the choice Hestia counseled against, the embrace of desperate power.
But he redeems it by using that power to destroy the tyranny he helped create.
And the connection to Annabeth, his mortal anchor, is what enables this moral choice. It proves that humanity and loyalty are the true counteragents to immortal evil.
With the final Titan scattered, the divine balance is restored almost instantly. Poseidon and his Cyclops army, including Tyson, who had magically grown to 30 feet tall, wearing battle armor, returned victorious.
They defeated and chained Typhon, the gods are safe, and the focus turns to rebuilding.
The rewards are immediate and significant. Annabeth Chase is recognized for her strategic brilliance and courage. She's named the official architect of Olympus.
Tasked with overseeing the massive rebuilding effort that is about to commence, but the major moment of consequence falls entirely to Percy.
Zeus offers Percy the ultimate reward, immortality and godhood.
And Percy declines. He states powerfully that he has a lot of life left to live and doesn't want to peak in his sophomore year.
He chooses mortality, consciously rejecting the power that Luke sought so desperately.
And this rejection of immortality is the true fulfillment of the great prophecy. It's the choice that saves the world. Instead of accepting power, Percy makes a demand that effectively rewrites ancient law.
He demands that the gods claim all their children by age 13, and that all the minor gods and peaceful titans like Calypso, whom Hermes mentions as an example of unjust abandonment, be given respect and recognition.
He argues, very convincingly, that Kronos couldn't have risen if so many demigods hadn't felt abandoned, angry, and unloved.
He diagnoses the entire war as an institutional failure driven by the Olympians' negligence and arrogance.
And the Olympian Council, humbled, indebted, and having just witnessed the consequences of their failure firsthand, unanimously accepts his terms.
This choice, rejecting absolute power to enforce institutional justice and loyalty, is the lasting victory of the war. It saves the world not just in the present, but for future generations of demigods by solving the root cause of the conflict.
However, the sources immediately temper this peace. Hermes reveals that Kronos is not truly dead, noting, "You can't kill a Titan."
He's merely scattered, hopefully unable to reform consciousness for centuries. Creos and Oceanus have fled, which means the threat still exists, just in retreat.
And the future arrives instantly with the arrival of the new oracle. Rachel Elizabeth Dare, having secured a deal with her father, agreeing to attend the dreaded Clarion Ladies Academy if he flew her to New York.
She flies in on blackjack. She makes her way to Camp Half-Blood, where she successfully becomes the next oracle of Delphi, free from Hades' ancient curse.
A process signified by the old oracle mummy just crumbling to dust. This is the end of one era of prophecy and the beginning of another.
And immediately upon taking the mantle, Rachel issues the next great prophecy, shifting the focus from one hero to many. The chilling lines are, 7 half-bloods shall answer the call. To storm or fire the world must fall. An oath to keep with a final breath, and foes bear arms to the doors of death.
Apollo suggests this prophecy may not be resolved in Percy's lifetime, but its ominous tone mentioning storm, fire, and doors of death leaves the future profoundly uncertain.
It sets the stage for a conflict that is larger, more widespread, and possibly involves greater destructive forces than the Titan War itself.
On a more personal note, though, the sources confirm the ultimate personal closure. Percy and Annabeth finally confirm their romantic relationship.
Sharing what the sources confirm was the best underwater kiss of all time at the Camp Lake.
And construction immediately begins on new cabins to accommodate all the claimed demigods, setting the stage for a dramatically larger camp population next summer, fulfilling Percy's demand for inclusion. #outro. So the true takeaway from this massive conflict is that the war was ultimately won not solely by the divine power of the Olympians, but through a cascade of critical choices made by mortals and demigods against the tide of destiny.
Beckendorf's strategic sacrifice.
Right. Luke's choice for redemption driven by the memory of his past promises, and Percy's defining decision to reject godhood in favor of mortality and institutional reform.
The prophecy wasn't fate so much as it was a framework.
Exactly. It was fulfilled only through determined and often unexpected moral choices made against overwhelming odds. The core lesson is one of moral courage over raw power, and of loyalty over abandonment.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, and where we need to connect this mythology to institutional consequence. Percy made a demand that fundamentally revolutionized the divine system.
He forced the gods to acknowledge and claim all their children to prevent future wars driven by abandonment and resentment.
He forced inclusion. He effectively demanded loyalty from the leadership by promising loyalty to the followers. But if we consider the chilling new great prophecy, which speaks of 7 heroes.
Right, the world falling to storm or fire and facing foes at the doors of death.
Did his successful demand for inclusion inadvertently ensure that the next inevitable massive conflict will involve a much larger and perhaps even more destructive cast of characters?
It's a terrifying thought. By solving the immediate problem of abandonment, Percy guaranteed that when the next great challenge arrives, the demigod fighting force will be exponentially larger and more powerful than the 40 children who defended Manhattan.
So while he secured internal loyalty, he may have simply raised the stakes for the next generation's conflict.
Was saving the current generation's world the necessary immediate precursor to a greater challenge for the next era? That's something for you to mull over as you contemplate the beginning of this new massive age of claimed heroes.
And a final thought. If true loyalty is the best defense, what happens when even that loyalty is fractured across 7 different, immensely powerful heroes?